All right, let's dive into the incredible history of Gujarat. And when I say history, I'm not talking about a few thousand years. We're going back a whopping 200,000 years on this journey.
Okay, let's kick things off at the very beginning with the ancient foundations of this region and its long, long history as a center for trade.
You know, it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. We're talking about a place that's been home to people for at least 200,000 years. Yeah, you heard that right. Archaeologists have found Stone Age tools all over the place, especially along these rivers, which tells us that the story of humanity in this part of the world, well, it goes way, way back.
So, this timeline, wow, it just lays out the incredible depth of history we're dealing with. You can see the whole journey, right? From those really early human settlements through thousands of years of hunter-gatherer life, and then, bam, the Indus Valley Civilization pops up, creating these major cities. And it doesn't stop there. Gujarat then becomes a super important piece of the puzzle for India's massive classical empires like the Mauryas and the Guptas. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that from day one, Gujarat's location on the coast was its superpower. I mean, it made it a natural hub for trade. You had the Indus Valley folks building these incredible advanced cities like Dholavira and Lothal, which was basically one of the world's first major ports. And then later, you see empires like the Mauryas investing in huge projects like the Sudarshana Lake. On top of all that, this is where major faiths like Jainism and Buddhism really take root, creating this rich cultural tapestry that's still there today.
All right, next up, the Age of Kingdoms. This is where Gujarat really starts to forge its own distinct identity, with its own powerful rulers taking the stage.
So after the big Gupta Empire fades, you get this rise of local power. This table really breaks it down. First, you've got the Maitrakas. They set up their capital at Vallabhi, which had a university so famous, it was giving Nalanda a run for its money. Then come the Chalukyas and the Vigalas. The key thing to remember is that these guys were building a rich, powerful, and independent Gujarat.
Okay, if there's one period to really pay attention to, it's the Chalukya dynasty. This was, without a doubt, a golden age. Their capital, Anhilwara, was huge. We're talking 100,000 people back in the year 1000, making it one of the biggest cities in India. And their architecture? Absolutely breathtaking. They built these magnificent temples and mind-bendingly complex stepwells, like the famous Rani Ki Vav. This is when Gujarat really hits its stride as a trade powerhouse on the Indian Ocean.
And now for a totally different chapter, the arrival of the Sultanates and eventually Mughal rule. This is a game changer for the region.
So, in 1297, everything changes. The Delhi Sultanate's armies, led by Alauddin Khalji, roll in and defeat the last of the local Hindu kings. This isn't just a change in ruler, it's the end of an era. Centuries of Rajput rule are over, and Gujarat is now part of a vast empire based in Delhi. A massive shift. But here's the thing about history. Power never stays in one place for long. When the Delhi Sultanate gets weakened, the local governor in Gujarat, a guy named Zafar Khan, sees his chance. In 1407, he just declares independence. Boom! The Gujarat Sultanate is born. His grandson, Ahmad Shah I, goes on to found the city we now know as Ahmedabad. For about 150 years, this independent sultanate is incredibly prosperous. Maybe a little too prosperous. Its wealth catches the eye of the Mughal Emperor Akbar, and by 1573, it's all over. Gujarat becomes a province of the Mughal Empire. The Mughals knew exactly what they had in Gujarat. They poured resources into the port of Surat, and it just exploded. It became the main door into India for all the European traders who were just starting to show up. And, a little bit of foreshadowing here, this is where the British East India Company sets up its first ever trading post in India, a tiny little seed that would, grow into something much, much bigger.
Okay, so the Mughals had their time, but by the 18th century, their empire is starting to weaken. And that brings us to the next big players on the scene, the Marathas and the British.
You know how nature abhors a vacuum? Well, so does politics. As Mughal power started to fade, it left this huge power vacuum. And in a place as rich as Gujarat, someone was bound to step in. And that someone was a new, rising power from the south, the Marathas.
The Marathas didn't just stumble into Gujarat. They made a statement. The legendary Chhatrapati Shivaji himself raided the mega-wealthy port of Surat twice. It was a clear signal. Over the next few decades, they just systematically took apart Mughal control in the region. Eventually, one of the main Maratha families, the Gaikwads, set up their own powerful kingdom right in Gujarat, with Baroda as their capital.
So this is where the British come in, and they play it smart. They don't just go in all guns blazing.
They use this sneaky but brilliant political tool called a subsidiary alliance. It's like a protection racket, almost. They go to a local ruler and say, hey, we'll protect you from your enemies. The catch? The ruler has to accept the British as the supreme power and, get this, pay for the British soldiers stationed in their land. It was a genius move that let them swallow up Gujarat piece by piece without always having to fight a major war.
All right, let's bring it into the modern era. We're going to see how Gujarat becomes a critical battleground in the fight for independence and how the state we know today was born.
And you really can't talk about modern Gujarat without talking about this man, Mahatma Gandhi. This quote just sums him up perfectly. It's almost fitting that the heart of the independence movement was here, in his home state. His whole idea of nonviolent resistance, satyagraha, it started here and spread like wildfire, eventually bringing the British Empire to its knees.
And these weren't just small, isolated protests. They were huge, strategic campaigns that literally wrote the playbook for the national movement. You had farmers in Kedah refusing to pay unjust taxes. You had another massive tax revolt led by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, another giant from Gujarat. And then, the big one, the Salt March. Gandhi's walk to the sea at Dandi was a moment of political genius that got the whole world watching.
So after independence, Gujarat was actually part of a bigger state called Bombay State. But people campaigned for their own state based on the Gujarati language, and on May 1st, 1960, they got it. The modern state of Gujarat was officially born.
But it wasn't easy. I mean, the new state had a massive to-do list from day one. They had to deal with refugees from partition, they had to build a brand new capital city from scratch, that's Gandhinagar, and they had to figure out how to operate in the chaotic political world of a new country.
The turn of the new millennium was a really tough time for Gujarat. First, in 2001, an absolutely devastating earthquake hit, killing around 20,000 people. And then, just a year later, the state was rocked by widespread and violent riots. These two events, back to back, left a deep and lasting mark on the region. So, when you look back at everything, what's the big picture? It's a story of incredible resilience, right? From ancient traders to powerful kings. From being part of giant empires to being the very heart of the freedom struggle. It's constantly changing, constantly adapting. Which really makes you wonder, what's next for Gujarat? What will its next chapter look like? Hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Gujarat's history, we've got a whole lot more for you in our South Asia history playlist, so definitely check that out. And of course, if you want more explainers like this, make sure to subscribe to Notebook Summaries. Thanks for joining us.